After the original tongues was written in the Ethiopian Ge'ez, the printing press was created in Germany in the 1400s. Then decades after, a German by the name of Martin Luther decided to translate Psalms into German. But instead of him saying he got it from Ethiopian Ge'ez, he claimed he got it from original Greek and original Hebrew. Then that was followed up by Miles Coverdale in England and William Tyndale. And both of them followed that same original Greek, original Hebrew made up bullschnizzle. Then Thomas Lodge followed them by creating the Flavius Josephus stories, which is basically the start of Jewish history. In other words, Jewish history was created in England by Thomas Lodge. Why? Because he attached a fictional character to actual people of the first century. For there was a couple of generations of Flavius. So he attached Josephus to the Flavius. In other words, James Bruce from the Kebra did the same thing. He attached Solomon and Sheba, who's supposed to be here in the latter times, to an Ethiopian king called Menelik. So there was an actual king called Menelik, but he was not the son of Solomon and Sheba. And he was definitely not the first king of Ethiopia. That's why Haile Selassie made it known that Menelik was the 99th king of Ethiopia. In other words, the Kebra is fake news made up in England. So let's read. Selah, there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that night early. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were removed. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Haile Selassie the first. And who is he? The firstborn. And I myself shall place him as firstborn, the most high of the kings of the earth. To time indefinite I shall serve my loving kindness towards him. And who is him? He is the root of David. So once I've sworn in my holiness to David, I will not tell lies. His seed itself will prove to be even to time indefinite. Notice it doesn't say it has proven to be. In other words, if it was to say has proven to be, that means it happened already. But his seed itself will prove to be even to time indefinite, and his throne as the sun in front of you. In other words, Solomon, his son, is going to have an everlasting kingdom. As the moon, it will be firmly established for time indefinite, and as a faithful witness in the skies. So who is Solomon? Solomon is Moses. How we know that? Because Solomon built an ark, and we know there's only one ark. So the holy ark of the Lord in the house that King Solomon, the son of David, had built. Don't forget, Solomon is supposed to be crowned at the end of times. And who is Solomon? He himself called out to me, you are my father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. So Solomon is calling out to his father, who is God himself, King David. So let's read. And we know that Jacob is a root unto David, and God acknowledged him as the firstborn. So remember, Haile Selassie is called a root unto David. That makes him Jacob, and God acknowledged him as the firstborn. And Haile Selassie is called Haile Selassie the first. So from him was to spring the man who won favor of all, dear to God and men, Moses. In other words, Moses is Jacob's son, and Jacob is David. And who is David's favorite son? Solomon. So that's why it says, he himself calls out to me, you are my father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. And I myself shall place him as firstborn, the most high of the kings. In other words, Jacob is considered the firstborn, and David is considered the firstborn. So both Jacob and David are considered the firstborn. In other words, they're the same person, God himself. And his favorite son is Solomon. So that's why Solomon, also known as Moses, built the ark. So when is Moses, also known as Solomon, supposed to be here? Ezra the priest brought the law of Moses that was given to the Lord God of Israel on the first day of the 7th month. Or there you will find the Lord God Most High, the God of hosts, also Jesus. So Jesus is together with Moses and the Most High. And when does this happen? I, Esdras, also known as Moses, also known as Solomon, receive a charge of the Lord upon the Mount Oreb that I shall go unto Israel, and I came unto them, and they sought me at naught, and despised the commandment of the Lord. So look for your shepherd that shall come in the end of the world. Don't forget, Solomon is supposed to reign when everything is peaceful. And we all know a big war is about to happen. So Solomon reigned during an era of peace. For God made a tranquil all his borders to establish a lasting sanctuary. In other words, his sanctuary, his kingdom, the Solomonic dynasty, happens after Revelation. So let's watch what Haile Selassie said.
On his personal rule. You are descended, Your Imperial Majesty, from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba.
This is just our story.
So notice the reporter is telling him that he's a descendant of Solomon and Sheba. And instead of Haile Selassie saying, yes, I am, he said, this is just our story. In other words, it was made up in Europe by some guy named James Booth and published in England in 1813. But reality states there is no evidence of Solomon. Solomon's tomb has not been found. There's no evidence of him. Why? Because he's supposed to be here at the end of time. So what does it say? Historians lack definitive archaeological evidence or historical text pinpointing the precise burial of King Solomon. In other words, no archaeological find bears King Solomon's personal inscription or definitely marks his direct presence. In other words, he's supposed to be at the end of times. So in conclusion, the traditional tomb of David on Mount Zion is a Crusader-era structure, significantly post-dating the biblical King David by over a millennium. Archaeological consensus indicate it does not align with the historical period or location of the ancient David dynasty actual burial place. In other words, Europe made up that Kebra story to hide the truth. So who is the truth? The Most High himself. So who is he?
Governor of the province. In 1928, he led the troops that killed Empress Zoditu's husband, who was not of royal blood, and became regent.
Remember, Haile Selassie said, even in the 20th century, David would still be Goliath. So in the 20th century, Haile Selassie was crowned.
He became emperor on November 2nd, 1930, and was crowned Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, King of Zion, conquering lion of the seed of Judah, power of the Trinity.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob.
Your Imperial Majesty, you were 39 years old when you were crowned in 1930.
Yes.
Could you talk